I'm ready.
He's always ready, born ready. All right, everybody, welcome to episode 37 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Dupaflex. Bill, how you doing today?
Doing good. Excited for our guest. One of the first guys I started following when I was getting into Superflex. So this is an exciting evening for me, and just a all around good dude too. So let's throw that out there too.
Yeah, let's keep it real. Obviously, if you're watching us, you see who we're talking about. But if you're listening to us on the podcast, we're talking about one of the best in the business. We got James the Brain with us. James, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. You guys are gonna make me blush over here, man. I'm telling you, the praise, man, heaping it on. I appreciate it, man. I'm telling you, every time I come on a podcast like this, I feel like the old guy, like the OG, like the guy who's like, oh yeah, I started listening to. That's one of the first guys I started listening to on Superflex. It's like, oh man, like it's crazy. It's a weird feeling because not what 3 years ago when I first started this podcasting, it was like I was in the reverse role, so it's always a little crazy to me. But I'm happy to be on. I listen to you guys all the time, and I'm ready to roll.
We're happy to have you on. And remember, you're not the old man. You are the wise teacher. That's what you are. Don't let
Who is
anyone
the
tell
old
you
man
you're
though?
old.
James, I think I'm older, right?
Hey, look, it age is just a state of mind, right? So
That's right. That's right.
who
That's why I
knows
feel
who's
old.
older?
All right, so we got the intros in. Let's get to the news. And really, the biggest piece of news, guys, is the NFLPA announcing that there's going to be no preseason and that the rosters are going to be cut down to 80 men during training camp as opposed to 90 in all other seasons that we've encountered. So, how does this affect us as fantasy and dynasty players? How should we take this news? What should we do with it? What do you think, Bill?
Well, I think my first thought when we were talking about this beforehand was just that we're gonna see a lot less undrafted free agents, making teams this year, just because there's going to be less players that have the opportunity. But I think a lot of the guys that we see during the preseason are guys that, will probably end up hanging around the team all year because there's going to be a lot of guys in and out of the rosters throughout the year. I have a feeling this year. So I think we really got to pay attention to guys who are doing well that maybe don't quote unquote make the team, just to keep them on your radar for waivers later on, because they very well may end up, playing a role sometime this season.
What do you think, James?
Yeah, without preseason, it's going to be hard to understand what kind of roles these players are in for and how the coaching staff views them. Coach talk is dangerous to pay attention to. So I think we're going to have to use other tools. I think the depth chart is something we're going to have to keep an eye on, especially updates. When teams update their depth chart, we're going to have to make any type of we're going to have to notice any type of differences and corrections that they make on that. So I think that's one of the big things is paying attention to updated depth charts, so that way we know kind of what coaching staffs are expecting from certain players and the opportunity that those players might be getting, because I don't really know how else we can do that without a preseason. So I don't think it affects the top players, but later on in the rounds, the depth that we're going to build, I think we're really going to have to pay attention to some of the fundamentals, as to what the roles are going to be for some of these guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of our UDFA darlings are going to go by the wayside, at least initially. And then depending on injuries and if COVID strikes teams or doesn't strike teams, we may see some of those guys come on later in the season. But I don't know how many Preston Williams we're going to have this year, a UDFA that kind of proves himself during training camp and the preseason to come out and ball and be, integral parts of our teams. So if your league has taxi squads, maybe that's where you store those guys this year. But if you are playing with shallower rosters or you're playing without taxi squads, a lot of those guys may end up being part of the waiver wire fodder. So good talk, little warm up to get us ready for the main event for what we've seen on the timeline. And I have to admit, Bill put some fire stuff on here, so I think we're gonna have a really good episode and a lot of good talk here. So this first one is from Eric Flynn at Eric John Flynn. It's always a good idea to take stock once in a while of players you own across leagues. Sometimes it throws up just how high you might be on players unconsciously. Here are my top owned players at the moment, and this thread will be my thoughts now that I know my partiality. So he had Irv Smith, who I personally love. I'm pretty sure, Bill, you love him too. And Keenan Allen were his tops. So, James, who are the guys that you have a lot of across your leagues?
Yeah, this was fun because I wasn't aware of some of the guys that made this list for me. Sony Michelle was by far and away the top guy, which would not have guessed. But his cost is versus opportunity doesn't shock me. That's a player that I'm high on. Jonathan Taylor, which is a little bit of a bias as a Wisconsin Badger fan. I got to see Jonathan Taylor play a lot, especially live at Madison. So I was all in on him right away. And Dak Prescott is another guy that I was gobbling up last year before the season at a discount, and I am quite happy that he made that list. An honorable mention goes to Noah Fant, Kelvin Ridley, and Tom Brady, who also were very close to making this list. I think they were one league away of me owning them from being on there. So definitely some names that I didn't expect to be on there, but it was an interesting exercise.
And with Dak Prescott as the headliner of your list, it shows that you have very good taste when it comes to the players that you acquire across your dynasty teams. Bill, how about you? Who do you like?
Okay, so this is in order of the highest. So, and also for anybody who's listening, if you do a lot of leagues on myfantasyleague.com, there is a website called the stickyboard.com where you can go and sign up. You basically log in with your MFL login, and it'll tell you like how many you have of each player. So like in mine, Josh Kelly was by far the most I had of anybody. By like over 10%. So like apparently I like him. At least the potential opportunity. Like late in rookie drafts, he's a guy that I apparently was grabbing a lot just because I felt like the opportunity is there for somebody to take over, the Melvin Gordon role kind of. So it was him and then Matt Stafford, which this offseason I added him on so many teams just because of his price compared to like what his potential is. And even if he like doesn't reach the potential I think he has, I mean, he's still a top, 14 quarterback. So I'm not really losing anything, even if he doesn't perform to what I think he can. And then Deontay Johnson, who was just a guy I was grabbing a lot last year in rookie drafts. And so those were my three guys. All of them were guys, I mean, that I feel were cheap compared to what they could end up being. And so I'm pretty happy that those are my three guys, actually. And also, I was just going to ask James, for Dak, do you have Dak because you got him cheap early on, or did you say, hey, I really like this, I'm willing to pay up for him? Like, kind of what was, how did you acquire him most of the time?
Yeah, last year with Dak, I purchased Dak before the season in a lot of leagues. So So before last season kind of hit, and I think I got him at a discount compared to what I think I could get for him now. So yeah, it was kind of a proactive move. It was something that I saw him heading into a contract year, the potential that he had with the weapons, the offensive line, everything. So I was luckily I hit on that player and was able to acquire him in a bunch of places. So I'm pretty aggressive when it comes to quarterbacks and superflex, going out and getting the guys that I like. So I think that I got I probably got him at a good cost compared to what I could sell him for now.
For sure, for sure. So my my big two, I didn't have three like you guys, but my big two were Quintez Cephas and Philip Lindsay. I was a huge Quintez Cephas fan throughout the process, and he was always a guy that I could get in that fourth round range that people, you know, just, in the fourth round, it's kind of pick your favorite guy, pick who you like. So I, in a lot of spots where it was able to get Cephas, I feel that with Detroit, he is going to take over that Marvin Jones role when Marvin Jones is through after this season in Detroit, anyway. Um, so I like that even in a year that there's not going to be a lot of training camp and there's going to be no preseason, he's kind of going to have a year to learn the position from Marvin Jones himself, see what he's doing, learn the playbook, and then Kenny G and Cephas are, next year's Kenny G and Marvin Jones from this year. So that was a guy I liked, and also Philip Lindsay. And a lot of my Philip Lindsay came last year. I got him where I could get him. I did make a trade for him during one of my rookie drafts this year. Yes, I know Melvin Gordon's in town. I know Melvin Gordon is a very good running back, but it seems like a lot of us forgot that Philip Lindsay is also a really good running back. I mean, he didn't just all of a sudden uh, become a scrub. Uh, this year, again, it may be a situation where Philip Lindsay sees a little bit more time because he has that chemistry with his teammates. He knows what the offensive line is going to be doing. He and Drew Lock have had some in-game experience to get to know each other and know what each other like, while Melvin Gordon is not going to have as much of that. Not saying that Melvin Gordon is going to fall off of a cliff or, not be good, but I think it might be a little bit more even than a lot of people, especially on Twitter, are giving credit for. So those are my two. Bill, I liked your three. I mean, my God, I think we liked Deontay Johnson before liking Deontay Johnson was cool. I mean, God, that was what, our third, fourth episode we were talking about Deontay Johnson. So Matt Stafford is another one that you and I love. So a lot of good players here, a lot of good information to chew on. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you don't really want to have these guys be the real expensive guys at the top of your list for how many you have. You really, personally, like, if you look at my top 10, probably 8 of those 10 are just based on price. So I'm taking flyers on guys that I think have high upside and hoping they hit. And then if they don't hit, I'm not, out a ton of value. I can just dump those guys and move on, and I have a bunch of roster spots. So that's kind of where, you don't want to, like, spend a ton of money acquiring expensive players. You at least I don't, and I think that's probably the best way to play is just, most of the guys that you have a ton of shares of are probably going to be the less expensive guys, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you have a bunch of shares of the top guys and you miss on them, you're in trouble in a bunch of different leagues. Whereas, if these guys are bench players, guys that you're hoping with high upside, if they hit, they can make their way into your lineup. But if not, they're not going to kill you. Those are the guys that you want across, several leagues. So no, I completely agree with you. On a side note, Rob Goller said James White for him, and with Quentin Cephas, with Jonathan Taylor, with James White, this is just becoming a Wisconsin Badgers themed episode, and I'm here for it. I'm all for it. So, Rob, on Wisconsin, back at you, bud.
Well, James, we know who our guests are, and we try to keep our guests happy. So we went full on Wisconsin here.
So let me share a little quick story just for James, because I'm a Michigan State grad, and let's say I can't remember what year it was. It was the year that Russell Wilson was there, so that was a pretty painful Big Ten title game that I was at. Man, he is just so good at just launching the ball into like open areas and just letting the guys run over and catch it. That's what he does in the pros too. Like it's so impressive, like what he does. And he won that game in the fourth quarter just on him being the best player on the field. It was just super impressive, and it was devastating to me because I was going to Vegas for New Year's, and then I was going to drive over to the Rose Bowl, but it did not happen for me. So
man,
I just stayed.
Cool would that have been?
I just stayed in Vegas, which was fine.
Oh, well, yeah, you didn't lose. That's fine. Yeah. It's tough for me as a Badger fan, because as much as I love Russell Wilson, it's hard for me to acknowledge him as a Badger because he was there for a year. So like,
sure.
Right.
Oh man, that one's he's tough for me. He's tough because I got some love there, but not as much as some of the other Badgers,
Yeah, because you don't really like associate him as a Badger, right? It's like, he's like almost like a rental a little bit.
Yeah, he was almost like, we brought him in as a free agent for a year, and that's fine, that's fine and dandy, but yeah, he's not a JJ Watt, he's not a lifer, someone like that, or Joe Thomas, who I can look up to because he even played for the Browns afterwards. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off of one of your points, James. Was listening to a friend of the show, Zach Reed, Tacit Assassin, and he had a great pod this week talking about what you might want to do this year, especially with just a lot of uncertainty and who may or may not get sick, is to stock up on running back depth and guys that we talked about, like a James White, guys like Kerryon Johnson, guys that you can get super cheap that, you can maybe get some production out of, because a lot of us we're talking about COVID and how COVID's going to, affect things, but we're not talking about just normal injuries that happen during football. I mean, guys get hurt, running backs get hurt, and if you have those cheap guys, maybe, you can find a Damian Williams owner that thinks that CEH is just going to run away with the thing and get him for a cheaper price, and just stock up on those, backup running backs, the handcuffs and stuff like that. You may actually be able to increase your depth and possibly use that to win yourself a championship. So good point by you, James, about kind of, looking at those cheaper options, and trying to get them before they blow up so that you have them when they do blow up. So this next one is from Mike C at Dynasty Trades FF. Wonder if Corey Davis or John Ross will ever be fantasy relevant. Which of the two would you rather stash? So, Bill, we'll start with you. Corey Davis or John Ross, and you can even answer if either one of them will ever be fantasy relevant.
So I don't mind either of these guys. I don't mind Corey Davis just because, like, if I, add him, he's probably not on the Titans next year. So we can at least see him in another situation. But I think I'm probably going John Ross just because his first year he didn't really play too much, and he's had he's had some flashes of some big plays, and he kind of offers something that the rest of the Bengals offense wide receivers don't offer. He's that speed guy, and he's actually scored a fair amount of touchdowns on the amount of receptions he's had. So there's some promise there. If I was going based off of just who, like the type of player I like, I'd rather Corey Davis. But I think just based on the offenses and the amount of volume I think that each offense is going to have, I have to go with John Ross and Cincy.
And Bill, I like how you phrase that. You don't mind either one of these guys. It's kind of like when you get a steak at a nice steakhouse and they put the broccoli on your plate. You don't mind it, but it's not really it's not really what you're there for. So I do like how you phrase that. James, who do you got? You got Corey Davis or you got John Ross?
Well, first off, I'm going to say I'm kind of on the opposite end of Bill, as in I don't want either one of these guys. I'm actively avoiding both. I've been out on Corey Davis for a little bit, a couple of years now, just because I mean he's had opportunity, he's had target share, he just hasn't done anything with it. And we can blame that on Mariota all we want, but last year, even with Tannehill, we saw AJ Brown shine. We didn't see that with Corey Davis, so I'm pretty much out on him. Bill, I think you made the best point for John Ross, is that he brings something different to the table that the rest of those receivers do. AJ Green, T Higgins are, T Higgins is kind of a younger version of AJ Green, is what Cincinnati's hoping and what I'm seeing. And then you have, Tyler Boyd, who's fantastic, but he's a premier route runner. He's a nice, kind of an all-around type receiver, whereas John Ross has that straight line speed. He is the guy whose safeties are going to have to stay back to cover. If they cheat up, all of a sudden John Ross could go over the top and make a play. I don't see a lot of targets in his future, so he's going to have to be ultra efficient. But I think he has a better chance to break out of these two. So I would take John Ross here if I had to. I'd rather not, but if I had to take one of these guys, I'll take John Ross.
Yeah, so it's a throw in and a trade, right? And you get to pick between those two. That's basically what's happening here.
Yeah, I'm probably countering and taking a third round pick. But if I had to, yeah, I'll take John Ross.
So I'm going to agree with James here once. I don't want either one of these guys. I agree with all of your Corey Davis points. He's had the opportunity. He's been the guy. Corey Davis is like that hot girl in the bar. She'll look at you once and smile, and you're like, man, there might be something here. But that's the last time she's going to look at you. Corey Davis has that one game a year where you get really excited and you go, man, Corey Davis is here. Corey Davis, he's figured it out. This is what the Titans paid for. This is what I've been waiting on. And then he goes back to being just regular old Corey Davis. I'm going to agree with James again, and I'm going to agree with Bill. We're going to go 3 for 3. John Ross, he does do something different. He's that speed guy, and the offense that's being built in the Bengals looks like it's going to be a lot more high-powered, a lot more high impact. Zach Taylor comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. So, Joe Burrow is there now. AJ Green is playing. They drafted T. Higgins. They still have Tyler Boyd. Joe Mixon. They have a lot of weapons. That offense has the potential to be really explosive. And I mean, let's face it, if John Ross is on the field, he's probably the last guy that the defense is worried about, because they got to figure out how to stop Joe Mixon and AJ Green and all the guys I just named. John Ross falls to the bottom of that list, and if he can just get straight and get by somebody, we're talking about a 45, 50-yard touchdown, and he's walking it in. So if I have to stash somebody, I'll stash Ross, because I feel that there's a lot more upside with him as opposed to the Titans' offense, which is more run-based. And then let's hit AJ Brown. I almost said AJ Green. AJ Brown. When we kind of put the defense to sleep with Derrick Henry. So, Mike, 3 for 3. John Ross, what's up, Bill?
Now, I was just curious before we move on, just because we're talking about Cincinnati. James, what's your opinion on Burrow let's say this year and then in the future?
Well, long term, I think Burrow is a top 10 fantasy quarterback easily, with the potential of being top 5. This year, a ton of it's going to rely on Cincinnati's offensive line, and that's where this offense is going to either make or break this year. Getting back Jonah Williams, who was hurt last year, is like adding a first round pick to that offensive line that they didn't have last year. So that's going to be huge. But I mean, that offensive line was bad last year. They were very, very bad. They have to improve. They have to give, and especially because I mean, you don't want Joe Burrow to get sacked. You don't want the David Carr effect, right? You don't want him to get sacked a bunch as a rookie and then be gun shy and try to get the ball out way too quick for the rest of his career. You could ruin a player that way. So I think the offensive line is really going to have to step up if Cincinnati is going to make that step. I think they can and they're capable. But it's a tough division, man. Baltimore's defense twice, Cleveland's defense got better with that pass rush twice, and then you have Pittsburgh's defense twice. It's tough to do, man. That's going to be tough. So Cincinnati, it's really going to depend on that offensive line, and I could see some garbage time points in division, but I don't know that they're ready to compete quite yet.
Yeah, agree. Love the fact that they're getting Jonah Williams back, getting a guy that played, 0 snaps for the team last year due to injury. And that's their biggest weakness on the offensive side of the ball right now is that offensive line. It was one of the reasons why we saw Joe Mixon kind of invisible for the first half of the season. And then, you know, he turned it on in the second half. But if they can get that line playing average, not even great, just average, I think a lot of things can open up for that offense.
I got a quick question for you guys. One of the things with the Cincinnati Bengals, since we're on them, that I have trouble figuring out what's going to happen for Cincinnati at the tight end position. I mean, we know CJ Uzoma's there, but they spent a pick on Drew Sample as well. What do you guys expect? Is there a contributor on this team at the tight end position? Is it strictly for blocking purposes? Are they even going to use a tight end? What do you guys think at that position for Cincinnati?
I expect that there will be a player that lines up at the tight end position. And that's about it. I mean, I don't see CJ Uzama or Drew Sample or whatever third string guy they might have there whose name I wouldn't even know um, being relevant. I mean, it looks like that offense is going to be built around uh, the wide receivers in the passing game. It looks like the tight ends might be out there to help block or do something like that. But I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see John Ross have more targets by the end of the season than all the tight ends there combined. So yeah, I don't think it's a relative position for fantasy.
Yeah, I think Uzuma was a couple years ago. He had a pretty decent showing when Eifert was hurt, and so like he's the guy if anybody I want on my team. I think Sample is more of a blocking tight end. You know, what's his upside? Maybe like a Nick Boyle or something like that. Where he ends up becoming like a solid pass catcher, but he's never going to be like prolific or dynamic. So, I mean, if I was going to take anybody, and I don't mind adding him, Uzuma, in teams where I may be light, at tight end, or if it's a 2 tight end league, he's the kind of guy that I'm looking to add just because he has the possibility for some volume. But I mean, what am I expecting? Probably like 30 some catches, maybe 400 to 500 yards and a couple touchdowns would be like a pretty good year for him, I think. But I mean, the opportunity ought to be there, right? Like, I mean, if all these other wide receivers, everybody's kind of playing those guys, there should be some open, or he should be able to get open at times. So, yeah, he's worth a flyer, I guess.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I don't see anybody else that can really stretch the seam, and B, I think matchup wise, whoever lines up at that tight end position is going to get a linebacker more times than not. So I think it's an interesting position to monitor, but I just don't know who it's going to be, and I think you guys pretty much nailed it. Like I don't expect a lot out of that position, but it wouldn't shock me if there was a sleeper at that position that at the end of the year we look at their stats and go, wow. I'm shocked that this guy had 70 targets, or
Yep.
68 targets or something. So yeah, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. I think they're in line with mine. So probably avoiding the tight end position in Cincinnati until I figure out who that might be.
So I have a quick question, and let's play a little name game since we're on the CJ Uzama train of thought here. And I know this is going to make for quality podcasting, but I think it's a little bit fun just to see where our heads are at. So I'm just going to throw out some names, and I want you guys to let me know if you'd rather have person I name or CJ Uzama. So let's start it off. Dalton Keene, rookie tight end, one of the rookie tight ends that the Patriots drafted.
I'll take CJ.
Is this hypothetical? Is this redraft or for the
Uh,
year or for dynasty?
let's go dynasty because I don't think these guys, unless you're playing in the 35 round draft and redraft, you're probably not taking any of these
Yeah,
guys.
sure. Then I'll say Dalton Keene, just because I think long term he probably has a higher ceiling.
All right, CJ Uzama or Caden Smith.
I'm taking Smith, just because I feel like Ingram is just so, like, who knows, like, if he's ever going to play a full season. So I don't mind. And he showed, like, he was like a tight end 12 or something when he played when Ingram was out. So, he's young. He's shown. I'll take him. But yeah, I guess that's all I got.
I'll take Uzama here, just because I'm banking on an injury for a player. Whereas Uzama, I my guess is that he's starting in Cincinnati, so I don't have to worry about someone ahead of him, getting hurt for playing time right away. But I mean, your point is well taken, Bill. Caden Smith definitely has more upside if he does play. It's just I don't know. At that point, I'll take the guy who I know is going to see the field, and I think Uzama is probably that guy.
Yeah, and if we're going to talk about the other guys, I'll actually take Caden Smith over Keene. So that's kind of shows you where I am, just because I know he's shown me something where, Keene, we're just not sure yet. But
All right, gonna do one more. See if I can get you guys to agree. CJ Uzama or Foster Moreau.
I like Foster Moreau, but I'm concerned about his injury. So, like, that's one of those things. Like, if it's redraft, I'm going Uzama or whatever. But I like Foster Moreau, and he showed enough last year to, like, where I think, like, he has long-term potential in the league. So, Dynasty, I'm probably taking Moreau, even though I know I'm going to probably have him on the IR for, for at least, he might be on the PUP list to start the season. So,
Well, we're gonna agree. I like Foster Moreau an awful lot too. He's shown the kind of upside that is a guy I would take a swing on, a tight end I'd take a swing on with at the end of my draft where you could get him. I would take him over Uzama. His ceiling's much higher, and I don't know long term that I'm a Darren Waller guy. He's a lot older than people would think, and I think Foster Moreau might be the guy there once he's healthy. So maybe I'm wrong there, but I'll take the risk on Morrow for sure.
Perfect. We'll end on that one, especially because I'm a huge Foster Moreau fan, and he might be the only guy in dynasty circles that can be considered a sleeper because you don't ever hear anyone talk about him. So that's good. So this next one here we got from Nate Christian at Nate NFL. Who is your dark horse to finish as wide receiver one this year? So James, why don't you go first? Who's that dark horse you have?
Yeah, for me, it's DK Metcalf. And look, DK Metcalf last year, his rookie year, he was much maligned coming into the league because you either bought in on him or you didn't. And there was a lot of people who just didn't think that his lack of route running or preciseness and that sort of thing, yeah, was going to carry over to the NFL. And so then he had his combine and he worked out, and then there was a lot of people who really went to bat for him. Last year was just so interesting because we saw once Once Lockett got hurt, Metcalf stepped up. I mean, he had close to 1,000 yards receiving, 7 receiving touchdowns. I think right now with Seattle's running back situation, Chris Carson's hurt. They're expecting him to be healthy, but how healthy? Rashad Penny may start the year on the pup list. Carlos Hyde, as much as I like him, he's kind of just a guy. So I think this team could be passing more, and if they are, that's more opportunity for DK Metcalf. A full season under his belt with Russell Wilson in this offensive system, he knows what to expect. I think natural progression is coming. I could see over 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns for DK Metcalf. So I think just the natural progression of him being in this offense for a second straight year, chemistry he can build with Russell Wilson, and increased opportunity in the passing game could equal DK Metcalf potentially. Again, this is a dark horse. I don't expect it to happen, but he could be. He could be in the conversation for wide receiver one.
All right, Bill, where did you head with this one? Who's your dark horse?
So just to kind of talk about DK a minute, like I think he is, he reminds me a lot of Dak. Like Dak. Who am I thinking of? Dallas. Dez Bryant.
Okay.
Like he's just like that physical specimen. Like he's not a great route runner. He can win with physicality. He can, I think DK's faster. But like, I think we're going to see like this crazy awesome like prime for DK Metcalf. And then we're just all of a sudden going to be like, what the hell happened? Like, I think there's just going to be the switch that goes off because like, I don't think he's ever going to be a fantastic route runner. I don't think he's, ever going to be like once his speed and, like once the DBs can kind of like stay physical and stay on him, that's when, it's kind of the faucet's going to turn off. But yeah, I mean, I think he's in for like an awesome, like 6 years, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you'll just get nothing out of him, or like almost like Dez. And, you just get old, your body gets beat up, I'm here to speak for that. And, these guys are beating their bodies up every day. So like, I like that. And I think he's a great guy to add, I'll be happy to get 5-6 crazy years out of him. So my pick was T.Y. Hilton. I kind of read this as a wide receiver one, not the wide receiver one. Like I there's no way he's going to be wide receiver one, but I think he's like wide receiver 30 something in ADP. And I just feel like he can end up being, like the last healthy year, he was almost 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns, was it 70 or 80 catches. So like if he's back to normal, I mean, he is the guy in their offense. So in Indy's offense. So he's a guy, if I'm a win now and I know that the season's going to happen, he's a guy I'm really happy having on my team.
All right, Bill, you saved yourself from a little bit of my wrath once you explained that you read it as a wide receiver one and not the wide receiver one, because for all of your AJ Green hate, you saying that T.Y. Hilton could be the wide receiver one, I was going to get on you a little bit, but
well, it says who is your dark horse to finish as a wide receiver one.
Well, so yeah, there you go. So
blam blam.
I guess James and I read it wrong, but since James is smarter than all of us, I'm going to say he's right. So, my dark horse, and I mean maybe I'm stretching that out a little bit to be I read it as the wide receiver one. I put OBJ. That offense was just a hot mess under Freddie Kitchens last year. He was running draw plays on 3rd and 18. He was just out of his depth. I mean, the only person that really, or maybe the only two people that really flourished in that offense was Nick Chubb and then Kareem Hunt. I think this year with Stefanski coming into town, a lot of people are focusing on the fact that they're going to run a lot. You're going to see a lot of Chubb. You're going to see a lot of Hunt. But I think people are underselling this pass game that they have. I mean, they do have Jarvis Landry. They do have OBJ. Yeah, they have a lot of ancillary receivers there that can do some things here and there. They drafted Donovan Peoples-Jones, which you could take that for what it's worth. But I think this is all going to just increase what OBJ can do, and a lot of us, we forget. We say he had a bad year, but this guy was playing with an abdominal injury. Played all 16 with that injury, then got core muscle surgery after the season was over, and still got 1,000 yards. I mean, we say he had a bad season, but he got 1,000 yards. The touchdowns weren't there, but if Odell has been able to sit and just rest and heal from that surgery, and he comes out there as the Odell of old, I mean, I think he has the ability. That it all depends on Baker's arm. Can Baker kind of recapture some of his rookie year goodness and not his Freddie Kitchens just nastiness? I think he can. I think Stefanski is going to really put him in a position to highlight what he does well. I mean, remember we saw Kirk Cousins, I think, throw 8 passes in that game 1, and we thought that this was just going to be run for Minnesota all year. And then as the season progressed, they started opening it up a little bit more. So, yeah, to be the wide receiver 1, it may not be a super dark horse pick, but I don't think a lot of people are predicting that. I'm going to go with OBJ.
Yeah, I buy that. I mean, like, he is arguably one of the 3 most talented wide receivers in the NFL. So, like, I mean, you're always going to give him a shot of winning or becoming the wide receiver 1. My concern is kind of the offense. I know you said that, it's less of a concern for you, but like, I think that they're going to run the ball a lot. And my concern even still is, even when Baker did well his rookie year, there were some interesting things that I saw, like where, like, let's say, I forget it was, oh my God, why am I so bad with names today? The slot.
For who?
For Cleveland, from Miami.
From Miami.
From play for the Dolphins. Jarvis.
Yeah.
God, I gotta edit my idiocy out of this, but I won't be doing that. Like he had like however many balls that were uncaught, like from compared to the targets, like 80% of them were uncatchable. And so even then, when he was doing well, like, he wasn't uber accurate, Baker. There was a lot of just throws that were way off target. And, he was a rookie, so we got to give him that. But then last year, I get it. The whole offense was just a mess. I still have a little concern that Baker isn't this prolific, accurate quarterback that's going to be able to support like a wide receiver 1. But I mean, you can't doubt OBJ's talent, I guess. And James, I mean, you're the Browns guy, so like, what are your thoughts? Do you think Baker's like where do you kind of rate him, I guess, in your quarterbacks? And do you think he's a guy that could support a wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 1?
Yeah, here's the thing. I've never been a Baker guy. Even when the Browns drafted him out of Oklahoma, I was never very high on the pick. So admittedly, I have a little bit of a bias, but I do believe that he can support a wide receiver 1, even the wide receiver 1, because I see what Kevin Stefanski is going to do. And I feel like this is going to be, he's going to utilize play action. He's going to put Baker in a position with rollouts to make plays on the move. And he's also going to utilize his strengths. I think he's going to get him in a timing rhythm. He's going to have a lot of early, easy completions for Baker, get his confidence going. Look, Baker is one of those players. He's a different type of player when he's confident as opposed to when he's down. You can just tell his demeanor on the field. He just plays better when he's confident. I really feel like the running game is going to work this year. Based off that, a lot of play action is going to be in order, and OBJ is going to fill the Stephon Diggs role. And it fits. He's an excellent route runner. They're going to utilize him off of play action. They're going to put him in positions to make the catch and make plays after that with the ball in his hands as an electric type playmaker. With the ball in his hands, he's really good at yards after catch, that sort of thing, and taking the slant and taking it to the house. So I think that's the position they're going to put OBJ in, and I think the reason why they're going to be able to do that is because they're really going to ask a whole lot less of Baker, and they're going to make sure that he is confident early in games. Like I said, a lot of easy completion, screen passes, working off play action, misdirection, moving him out of the pocket, getting him on the move, that sort of thing. Things that he's comfortable doing. And I think when they do that and Baker can play with a certain level of confidence, we'll see a more accurate quarterback there. So I really feel like this coaching staff is going to puts players in the best position to succeed, and I think they really need to do that with Baker.
So do you think that, because I feel like they're going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets, right? Like, you think they're going to do a lot of, like, their base might be 12 personnel, right? Like, so do you think people are understating the value for like Njoku right now? And then if, like, let's say he gets traded, which I highly doubt they're going to trade him this year, just because like he's so young and so talented, like it just doesn't make sense to trade him for what you would probably get for him. Do you think like Harrison Bryant is like a sleeper then? Like, I mean, I think that these tight ends are getting really underrated just because of the scheme I expect them to run.
Yeah, Harrison Bryant is definitely a sleeper. And here's the thing, David Njoku, he might be best serviced as the slot receiver on this team. He might be the wide receiver 3 because his blocking is not very good, but he's an excellent receiving tight end when he's put in that position. Previously, the past coaching staffs have not wanted to utilize David Njoku in the passing game because he didn't take blocking seriously. But here's the thing, Harrison Bryant does. He is a fantastic blocker. So I could see him being in line in more 2 tight end sets and David Njoku being on the sideline, even if they don't trade him. And then in 3 wide sets, David Njoku being out there and maybe not in the slot, maybe out wide. They can move Landry to the slot, but I could see David Njoku playing himself into a role where he's utilized more as a receiver than as a tight end. Maybe even a tight end that lines up on the line and gets split out wide to get a matchup that they find as advantageous. But Kareem Hunt could also fill that role. Kareem Hunt could also be a guy who they motion out of the backfield, with Nick Chubb and have him in the slot. So they have a lot of options there, but I don't think any of them are traditional as far as the slot receiver goes, because I don't know about you guys, but Taywan Taylor doesn't do much for me.
Not at all. And one of the things I thought was most interesting about Kevin Stefanski was the praise he got from the players on the Minnesota Vikings. Dalvin Cook came out and said that he was a great coach, a great leader. Oh my God! Now I have a case of the Bills. The tight end for Minnesota, Kyle Rudolph.
Smith or Kyle Rudolph. Yep.
Kyle Rudolph said that he helped him so much prepare each week. Get into the game plan, really figure out what his role was going to be on a week-to-week basis. So when you hear that kind of stuff coming from the coach's former team, you kind of see, what kind of guy he was, and I think that's going to benefit OBJ because I think he needs to have that type of relationship with whoever's coaching him. I don't know if he and Freddie Kitchens had that relationship. I mean, and that's me saying I honestly don't know. But I think that if what the Minnesota Viking players are saying is true about Kevin Stefanski, I think that's going to be the type of guy that OBJ is really going to thrive with. So great stuff, guys. I think we all have some dark horses that could definitely surprise come 2020. So now we get to the part of the show where we snatch some tweets that our guest has put into the atmosphere and get some of their thought process behind it. So this is from obviously our man @_James the Brain. Ronald Jones can seriously do nothing at this point to distract from his haters. Haters. Rojo can't catch. Last season, Rojo has a good catch rate. Haters. He isn't built to be a feature back. Rojo bulks up. Haters. That always works well during the offseason. So much bias. So, Bill, I want to start with you. What are your expectations for our man, Ronald Jones?
So, like, I can appreciate, like, I mean, it's impressive that he bulked up as much as he did, because from what I recall, he started out as like a 205, like when he came out of college. So if he's up to 225, like they claim, I mean, that's a lot of bulk. And I mean, that's impressive that he put that work in. And, you know, a lot of times we get caught in this thing where we believe that a player is what he is when he comes out of college, and that he doesn't have the opportunity to grow and improve. And, you know, this might actually be the first time that the guy actually gets real coaching. So, like, there's a lot of times that we kind of fall in that trap where, like, whatever our bias is, whatever our, you know, interpretation is of a player, we fall into that trap where we don't change our mind, or at least appreciate the changes that this player has shown. I'm not a hater. Like, I'm definitely not that. Like, I'm very open-minded when it comes to players. I think, like, he has as good a chance to, like, I mean, he's not gonna, like, be nothing this year. He's gonna be a contributor. I think there's no doubt in my mind that that's the case. Is he gonna be a quote-unquote starter? I don't know that either. But I mean, you got a rookie running back coming in. I mean, who knows what he is? Keyshawn Vaughn, you know, everybody's saying, well, he has like the 3-down back skills. Okay, yeah, that's true. But is he going to actually be able to implement that in the NFL, which we don't know? And, you know, like, everybody thinks that Rojo's bad in pass protection. Well, could he have improved over the last 2 years? Maybe. I mean, he obviously put a ton of effort into bulking up. Maybe he put a ton of effort into becoming a better pass blocker, you know? Like, there's a lot of things. Like, I'm never going to discount somebody completely just because there's the opportunity for these guys to grow. Now, what are my expectations for him? It's so hard to say, because it's just, there's such a broad range as to what I could see him doing. But, like, I could see him falling in that, like, RB 24 to 36 range. And I mean, that, I think I feel comfortable saying that. Now, like, is he going to be, like, he would have to get a lot of touches to jump into that, like, RB2 range. And I'm not necessarily sure I could say that I feel comfortable that he'll be there just because Keyshawn Vaughn's there. But I guess that's where I'm kind of at right now.
Yeah, so Ronald Jones is such an interesting player. He kind of came in, he was battling with, oh God, I can't even remember the guy's name now, who's now in Washington.
Yeah, played
Peyton Barber, and he was supposed to take that over and be the guy. And, you know, for whatever reason, the coaching staff didn't allow that to happen. There were clips by Bruce Arians that, you know, he would get mad at him for missing pass blocks and would take him out of big chunks of games. So he was a guy that I was always lower on, because I felt that the coaching staff didn't have faith in him. Not so much that me personally didn't have faith in him to be a fantasy contributor. See, it's hard.
But he still got like almost 800 yards last year just in rushing, right?
Well, yeah.
And, like, so I mean, that's crazy, right? Because you, as much as people thrash him, like, he did all right.
And I agree with you, and his stats are impressive considering the fact that it didn't look like the coaching staff had faith in him at points.
Right.
What he was able to do when he was on the field, he was electric. I think I saw something that he had like he was kind of among the top guys in rushes over 20 yards or something. And if I heard that stat wrong somewhere else, I apologize. But it seems like he kind of had that explosion when he was allowed to be on the field, but he would miss a pass block, and then Bruce Arians would go old school coach and put him in the doghouse. And um, my biggest fear this year about Ronald Jones is the fact that Keyshawn Vaughn was taken in the third round. And it's not so much that I think Keyshawn Vaughn is an elite talent. I think that Tom Brady had his fingerprints kind of on this draft. They trade up one pick to get the offensive tackle because, I mean, Tom Brady probably watched a lot of Buccaneers film and realized that that offensive line was trash. And I'm wondering if that pick was because he didn't have full faith in Ronald Jones in the pass blocking game. And I also wonder if Tom Brady tries to get Bruce Arians to go to a more Patriot style. Let's use like three guys. Dare Abungawale is still there, and I'm not saying he's a talent that you need to put on your team right now, but I'm wondering if it's going to start to become a three-headed monster, and Ronald Jones gets diluted. But I do think that Ronald Jones has 1,000-yard, 8-touchdown upside if he's played the way he should be played, if he's used the way he should be used. I'm just worried about will that actually happen, and that's actually my biggest worry is not the Ronald Jones talent. It's will he be used in that way? James, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just pop in real quick because I made the comment about like RB 24 to 36. Well, last year I just looked it up in a PPR league, and he was like RB 26 in the league. So like he's already there. Like so, it's crazy to me. Like I was speaking out of ignorance when I said that because I was like I didn't do a lot of research on him before the show, and that's just my it's that personal viewpoint like that you get influenced by maybe he was reading it on Twitter or just that bias that you have from the draft. Maybe he wasn't worth that 104 that people are drafting him, that sort of thing. But yeah, he was almost an RB2 last year, and that's crazy to me. He had over 30 receptions, 7 rushing touchdowns. So I mean, it's pretty impressive. And so just correcting myself a little bit before James comes in and slaps me with the correction.
Well, no, and Bill, I want to throw this out here too, and this kind of doubles back around to what we talked about at the beginning of this episode. It's who do you have a lot of exposure to? Bill, you play in a lot of leagues. James, I know you play in a lot of leagues. If you have higher exposure to certain players, then you kind of are able to read through the noise a little bit better because you've seen what they've done on your teams. If you have a lower exposure rate, I don't have Ronald Jones on any of my teams. So when you said he was RB26, I knew he was better than what a lot of people will say he was, but I didn't know it was RB26. So that impressed me. I was like, wow, he's a high-end flex guy for you. 26, he may be a guy that you're starting on a week-to-week basis in a flex spot, depending on what your league rules are. So I don't think it's so much ignorance. I think it's more exposure, especially when you get into the amount of leagues that we all play in. Kind of like if a guy's not on your roster doing it every week, you kind of are more susceptible to the noise. Now, James, come in. Tell us why we're all wrong.
No, I'm not going to do that because I think you guys said some pretty cool things about Rojo and how you didn't really expect that he was going to be RB26 last year until you looked it up. But Ronald Jones last year, look, he had over 1,000 total yards and seven rushing touchdowns. He was fine, and that was on a team that, when you think about it, Jameis Winston threw the ball all the time. He had over 30 touchdown passes. he went nuts, right? And they were playing from behind a ton because he also threw a ton of interceptions.
Mhm.
So I don't expect that to be the case here with Tom Brady. Tom Brady has worked out with Ronald Jones in the offseason. He really has said that he really likes Ronald Jones, and he's on record this offseason as saying that he doesn't work well with rookie running backs. I mean, if that's not a red flag for this year for Keyshawn Vaughn, I don't know what is. But Ronald Jones could easily take a step forward and have 1,200 yards and double-digit touchdowns. We're talking about an RB2, high-end RB2 if he does that at least. And that's just a step forward. He already had 1,000 total yards. We're talking 200 more total yards. There's no Peyton Barber there, who at the beginning of the year, Peyton Barber was the guy who was starting. Ronald Jones was coming in as that change of pace back. That's not there. He's got the Tom Brady seal of approval. And let's face it, when Tom Brady's on a team, pretty much what he says goes, right? I mean, especially with Bruce Arians, it seems he's got some leeway. I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that he wanted Gronk to come back, and Gronk is on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. So I think Brady he holds a lot of sway, over that coaching staff, and I think he's already on record saying is he likes Ronald Jones. They've worked together. I think Ronald Jones has Tom Brady's trust, and I think that's a big part in seeing the field on that offense. So an offense that is probably going to run the ball more than they did last year. You don't want Tom Brady slinging it around the field 40 times like Jameis Winston did at times last year. So I could see increased opportunity. I could see less of a timeshare than last year, and I could see those numbers taking a step forward. Again, 1,000 total yards last year. It's not totally unreasonable to think that could go to 1,200. Guy had 7 rushing touchdowns last year. It's not unreasonable that we see 10 total touchdowns for him this year. 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns at the price that he's going at right now, absolutely, I am taking him every single day. So it's just, I think a lot of people saw Ronald Jones, didn't buy into his talent. There was a rumor around that he wasn't a hard worker. I don't know where that came from, but there was a lot of that I saw that he, and so people on Ronald Jones, he's very, very divisive. Either you're all in or you're not in at all. And the people who are not in at all just won't look at the facts right now and say, you know what, this guy could have a really good year. And I think we all have those biases that we have to get over. I have one with Aaron Rodgers. I won't see the fact that this guy may have a good year, one of these years. So, but we all kind of have to work through that. And I think with Ronald Jones, he's one of those guys that his, the people that don't like Ronald Jones are not going to hear anything about him, potentially having a good year. They're just not. So take advantage of it, get that guy later in drafts than you should, and enjoy reap the benefits.
For sure. And our man, Rob, we're just staying on brand here. I had to bring up Dare, former Badger. We're keeping it on brand for this episode, making James part of the family here, and just keeping up with the Badgers talk. But what were you gonna say, Bill?
So so the next kind of follow-up question to this conversation was like, okay, so we see the expectations. What are you willing to pay to acquire him on a team, James?
Well, what I'm willing to pay is probably more than what I have to because I'm higher on him than most.
Right.
So I don't think you have to. I think a second-round rookie, a 2021 second-round pick probably gets him for most teams. I'm willing to pay that. I'm willing to pay that, especially in a year where, if there's no college football, those 2021 picks are going to take a hit, I think. So I'd be willing to pay that for Ronald Jones.
Okay, I agree with your comment about the picks, and I just pulled up like the most recent transactions to kind of give an idea of what you can acquire him for. James White and $25 a blind bid for Rojo.
Yeah, I like James White, but I think I'd do that.
Rojo for Paris Campbell in a second, so that's like 2 seconds probably.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Rojo for N'Keal Harry.
Man, I have such high hopes for N'Keal Harry still, so I don't know that I love that one. That one I would have to really sleep on, but I like Rojo a lot, so I'd consider it. But man,
his price is getting up there. Rojo for Gallup, Rojo for Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, I think both those guys, Gallup and Boyd, are guys that we are probably higher on the consensus. Gallup, his value took a hit when they drafted CD Lamb,
Yeah.
and that's not the guy that I'm devaluing. Amari Cooper would be the guy I devalue, but I'm not devaluing Michael Gallup. But I think the dynasty community might be.
Rojo for AJ Green. So I would say probably overall we're at like probably Rojo for a second and a third ish is probably like the overall, like if we were to average everything out. So yeah, I mean, for a guy who could be an RB2 pretty easily, at least if you believe that he's going to get a similar, if not more, opportunity. Yeah, and if you need a second running back, he's probably a pretty good guy to add at that price, I would think. And he's
Yeah.
young. He's super young.
Yeah, and he's a guy that if you're paying that price for him, I mean, you could get him as a third running back really, and feel good about the price you paid for him. And if he turns into that RB2, you're golden. Especially in a year where depth is going to be key. I think we talked about that a little bit, Josh, on how depth is going to be key this year with COVID cases and with everything kind of going on. The guy with a ton of top end talent and nothing on his bench might get hurt this year. You might want that depth. You might want those guys that are sitting on your bench that could come in for 2-3 weeks, multiple weeks, and not kill you. So that could be the way to go.
And Bill, as you were saying about his age, Rojo in 2 weeks is going to turn the ripe old age of 23. So
he's actually younger than Keyshawn Vaughn, who was drafted
right.
this year. So I mean that kind of shows you, like he has 2 years. Like he was 21 years old when he started his rookie year. So like those guys is like Kerryon Johnson. Any of those guys, like even when they get to their second contract, if things don't work out in their first situation, they still have the opportunity to potentially do something elsewhere.
Yeah,
This guy also was a 21-year-old kid who moved across country. I mean, that's a tough transition to make, not just time zone wise, but I mean, that's a different life that you're living. That takes some time to get used to for any of us, but for a 21-year-old especially. There was a lot working against him his rookie year. I think bigger things are coming for Ronald Jones.
And sometimes I like, when there's guys that, it took him a minute to start rolling in college, right? Like he didn't just blow up in his freshman year. Like it took him, a season and a half before he started producing. And so sometimes, there's guys that it takes a minute for them to kind of figure things out and, get a feel for the offense and, their, like responsibilities and all of that kind of thing. And, maybe he's just one of those guys that needs that extra time to, kind of feel, comfortable with his situation. And, I usually guys that I see when they run into that situation in college, I'm a little bit more forgiving when they get to the pros because you can't really expect them to all of a sudden just be on point right away. And I'm willing to give them a little bit more time to kind of get acclimated.
And I want to throw this one up here. So James, just let you know, Lindsay, Ronald Jones didn't want to trust him, but I'm coming around. So James, you're out here changing minds when it comes to Rojo. You're letting people know that, especially, if we're talking about giving up a second round pick for a guy that worst case scenario is a depth piece on your team. I mean, I think that's good business. And we were talking about a second and a third. You could even possibly craft a deal where the third is in 2021 and the second's in 2022 and really kick that can down the road. And I think, like our man, FF Addict, Never Rojo, if you find a Never Rojoer in your league who just happens to have a piece of them, maybe you give up that 2022 second and maybe cash in on a little bit of Rojo love. So we're going to hit the last question that we have on the show sheet real quick. And this is one I picked that you responded to, and it kind of made me start thinking. So this is from Fantasy Pollster at FF Poll Tsunami. He said he was up at the 308. Which player are you taking here? And he had guys like KJ Hamler, Josh Kelly, who we talked about earlier, Devin Duvernay, Van Jefferson, and the list goes on and on. One of the guys on that list was Antonio Gandy Golden. And James, you said you would go with AGG in that spot, but it made me think, who have been your favorite rookie picks this year that you've gotten past the first couple of rounds?
Yeah, so real quick on AGG, I think he gets disrespected a little bit just because he played at Liberty. A lot of people didn't see him play. This guy wasn't a guy in Alabama, So I don't think people know just how good he is. He's a really good player. Antonio Gandy Golden is the type of guy who, you're going to see him win at the catch point. He's that type of receiver, and he's going to have opportunity now because it looks like Calvin Harmon's hurt, and he's going to miss the year. You have Terry McLaurin and you have Steve Sims. I don't know. That's about all that he's working with. So yeah, I like AGG, but my favorite, look, and Superflex, it's kind of nice because that talent gets pushed down the board a little bit because some quarterbacks go a little earlier, boys. So you see guys like, the top two picks a lot of times are, Tua and Joe Burrow. And then you see Justin Herbert going in the first round, and then Jordan Love's all of a sudden going. And then you find yourself at the 3.02 like I did in the draft, and you have A.J. Dillon sitting there, and you're going, man, I got a guy who could be the starting running back for the Green Bay Packers next year. This could be awesome. So that was my favorite pick in the third round that I saw that I had this year. I really like A.J. Dillon. I just see what's going on with Aaron Jones and the contract situation there. Jamal Williams is kind of just a guy, but he's also in a contract year. So if Green Bay isn't going to pay running backs, which a lot of teams aren't, A.J. Dillon might just step right in next year and take that lead role. And this is a team that looks to be run first now. So I really like that pick. And I think A.J. Dillon landed in a prime spot, even though he wasn't one of my favorite guys coming out of the draft. He definitely landed in a nice position. So I think his opportunity trumps the talent there.
Bill, who are you liking when you get past that second round?
Well, I really didn't know the answer until I looked up how many shares I had of players, and because I had so many Joshua Kelly's, he's apparently the answer. It's just him or Justin Jackson, who somebody other than Eckler is going to get a pretty decent role in with the Chargers, and it's just a matter of who you want to bet on. And either of those guys you can get for a third rounder. So do you want to grab both of them for 2/3 and end up with one of the guys that could end up with 80% of Melvin Gordon production? That's kind of interesting. It's at least something to consider. And, I'm not adverse to doing that, I guess, but I've put all my money on Josh Kelly just because he was available to me in the third round pretty much in every league. So it's him. And as for AGG, he's the kind of guy, you got to be patient with him because those big wide receivers, it usually takes them a year to kind of really get acclimated. Galladay, you just got to see that the guy looks the part. And, I think Galladay, his rookie year, only had 500 or 600 yards, and but he showed that he could play. And, AGG has those similar skills to Galladay. And, he's a guy that you can, even if you don't do it now, you can get him probably this next off season for not ridiculous price. And yeah, I like him. I like AGG, especially he's a third round pick right now. Why not give a shot at to him? Sometimes he's falling into the late third.
So it's very interesting, Bill, because you and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to the Charger running backs. You have a bunch of Joshua Kelly, and I like Joshua Kelly, but I was all over Justin Jackson last offseason. Sure. So I've got him rostered everywhere. So One of us is going to be very happy, and the other one is going to be bumming out.
But why can't we both be right? You know what I mean? I would rather. All I want is that to be one or the other, not both. Right? That's the biggest. Oh, that would hurt. But you could add the other guy just to hedge your bet, and it's only going to cost you a third round pick. You know what I mean? And that's something that at least. If you're not sure, which I'm not, I'm just rolling the dice on one of the guys. like I liked Justin Jackson too. I mean, Northwestern, he had 1,000 yards, 3 years or maybe even 4 years in a row. And like, I mean, to do that on a less than stellar team in the Big Ten against good defenses, I mean, that's impressive. And, he has shown pretty decently when he's had the opportunity. He has a pretty good yards per carry and all that kind of thing. So, like, I like that. But grabbing Josh Kelly in the fourth, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, okay, they definitely needed that third running back. Who's going to get it? I don't know. Justin Jackson was a 7th round pick. Maybe they're going to give Josh Kelly a little bit more of a get opportunity just because of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm probably willing to add Justin Jackson on a few extra teams just to kind of hedge my bet, I guess.
It's funny that us Big Ten guys are all on Justin Jackson. We knew early watching him at Northwestern that this guy was, he could do something. So yeah, I just think it's interesting as a Big Ten truther myself that we both kind of knew, man, that Justin Jackson, there's something there. So yeah, but no, I like Joshua Kelly too. He has more draft capital, so it could really be either one. But man, I was so invested in Justin Jackson that I wasn't able to get as much Joshua Kelly. So we'll see. I got some, so I won't be too bummed if it's Kelly. But yeah, I hope you're right. I hope. Why can't we both be happy?
Right.
Let's do that.
Well, man, I mean, there's a lot of love going on around here. You guys are hugging it out. Yeah, I also like the AGG call, especially now that Kelvin Harmon has gone down with a torn ACL. He's going to miss the entire season. I think there's a hole that's opened, and somebody needs to come in there. And I'm wondering if the Washington coaching staff is going to put their 3rd round pick in there and try to get them going quickly, because it's Terry McLaurin and then AGG and then the 3 of us playing receiver for Washington. And I know Bill's got immense athletic upside, but I'm just a big slow guy that you got to throw it up for, and my vertical's not what it used to be. So, I mean, I know Steven Sims is there, and there,
he's a slot.
He's a slot,
I'm more of a supervisor type.
Yeah,
body build right now. So
yeah, and we like the role that you play for the team. So we're very happy with what we have. But I like that call, especially because he could be kind of force fed, because they do need another receiving option. It just can't be 100% target share to Terry McLaurin, as much as we would love to see that. Somebody else does need to catch a ball. What's going on, Bill?
Now, before we get to the goodbyes and everything, who's going to lead the Redskins in rushing this year?
Darius Geis. I'm gonna die on this hill. I don't care if he's got one leg. He's gonna do it. Man, this is my heart more than my head. I am rooting for this guy so much. His attitude, his work ethic, it's infectious. I want to see this guy blow up. Even if he just has 1 year and does it this year, even if it's just that's it, it's a one-off and he's done and he retires, I would be so happy for him. So I'm just going to say it's Darius Geis, only because A, I have no confidence in anybody else on that roster, and B, I just want to see it. Geis deserves it at this point.
If it's not Geis, who is it?
Man, now you're killing me.
I know, that's a tough question, isn't it?
You know what? Here's the thing. Like, Peyton Barber is
AP?
always that guy that just Peyton Barber's always that guy. He's that thorn in the side. He's that guy that you're like, oh man, why is he there? Because if he wasn't, this player would be good. Yeah, but the thing is I'm not betting against AP. I don't care how old he is. That guy just seems to somehow always, even when it doesn't look like he's going to produce. So if it's not Geis, I'm going to say it's Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, James, you and I, we've agreed for the entire episode until right now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a Geis hater. I think the dude is
I love Geis.
Immensely talented. I just don't know if he can stay healthy. And I know people are going to say, they're going to talk about the injury history and this and that, but it worries me. Now, if the guy can stay healthy, dude, he's going to blow up. It's not even going to be funny. A lot of the people who are kind of on my side of the fence are going to have to eat a lot of humble pie because I think he's going to do some really big things, especially on an offense that needs all of the help it can possibly get. I do agree with you. If it's not Geis, it's going to be AP. A lot of us don't realize that he has over 1,900 yards over the last 2 seasons. So he's averaging almost 1,000 yards a season. Yes, he's 476 years old, but he's not human.
Alien.
Yeah, he's something different. And he might play till he's 50. I don't know, but yeah, I agree with you. If it's not Geis, I think it'll be AP. And just a quick before we get out of here, my guy pass round 2 has been Quintez Cephas. I didn't need to look at the previous question to realize that, because I just know I drafted him everywhere. 4th round in a lot of spots. I even got him in the 5th round.
Another Wisconsin guy.
Yeah, if Cephas blows up, man, you're going to have to get a Badgers Quentin Cephas jersey. It's going to have to happen.
Listen,
he's win you so many leagues.
If he blows up, I will use my league winnings to actually try and.
I'll get you one for Christmas, brother.
Oh,
nice! Look at that.
And this is why Bill is my spirit animal. And I think the real reason why he likes Josh Kelly so much is because Josh. I think it's the only thing that makes sense. Yeah. So on that note, man, it was a killer episode. James, thank you for coming on, man. Appreciate it. You do what you always do and just kind of dropped a whole lot of knowledge. And I know I'm speaking for both Bill and I. We had a ton of fun having you on. If for some reason people have been living under a rock and they don't know where to find you, let them know where to find you, man.
Absolutely. Before I do, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. The FTL podcast has been one of those in my rotation for a while, and it's still there. So keep killing it. Keep up the good work. Everyone, you can find me on Twitter @_James the Brain. You can find my Superflex rankings and my writings over on DLF at dynastyleaguefootball.com. And you can also find me on the Superflex Super Show, which you can find in the DLF family of podcasts, or on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, all the usual places. So, but thanks again, guys, for having me. I really appreciate it. I had a blast. I'll talk football with you guys anytime.
And honestly, you have an open invitation, brother. You come on anytime. I don't even care if we invite you. If you hit us up in the DM and say, "Yo, I'm coming on this week," we'll shoot you the StreamYard link and you just jump right on, man. No issue with that whatsoever. So
you guys are gonna get sick of me quick.
Doubtful. But thank you to everybody in the chat, man. The chat was lit. Rob was throwing out some tidbits. Lindsay, we converted her. She went from a never Rojo to a maybe Rojo. So we're getting her there. We had people in and out, just keeping the chat lit. We appreciate you. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember to hit subscribe and hit the bell so that you know when we go live. And if you're listening to this on podcast, we appreciate that too. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us out. We like seeing what we're doing good, but we also like seeing where we can improve. And on that note, we're out of here, Bill.
Late.